What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 279. Today our guest is Morgan Kirkpatrick. She's a good friend. I really enjoyed talking to her, and we finally got to have her on the podcast. November 5th, you can vote for her as she's running for the State Board of Education for District 15. Go out and show your support. We obviously talked about that and just talked about the education system now and kind of what's going on and all of that. We had a good time. Thank you for coming on, Morgan. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's a free and easy way to support us over here. You can like and subscribe to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We have The Big Pink Pee-Pee Show. That's a new podcast on Snake Pit Studios network, so check that out every Sunday. Check out Lords of Film. The Big Pink Pee-Pee Show will drop every other Saturday, and then every Friday we have the Conversation Pit, which we do on patreon.com/snakepitstudios. That is a $1 tier. That's another great way to support us. But if you really, really want to support us, come out on June 22nd at the CASP Studio C for Snake Pit Live. I got 5 comedians. I got a couple of guests, and I have a really big surprise at the end. It's $5, and it is 21 and up. You can also check out Season 3, and Humble Hustle will have his mobile print studio there printing out Snake Pit t-shirts. Or you'll get to print out the shirt yourself. So come out, support us, hang out with us, get drunk with us. Let's have a good time. Thank you guys. Hope you enjoy the episode. Here we are, Morgan Kirkpatrick. I want to get started right off the bat. Let's get into it. I've been waiting. If you want to pull that mic closer to you. Let's talk about the results. I was, so for me, I wasn't shocked. But what I was shocked was the Hispanic, I guess mainly Mexicans here, turnout. That was pretty disappointing, I will say. I knew the old folk were going to be there. I knew the white folk were going to be there. I knew the young folk weren't going to be there. But the lack of Hispanic, speaking of,
yeah,
I was like, golly, that was the most shocking thing for me. How are you feeling about all of it?
I was just talking about this with some friends, and it's really disheartening. I became a VDR after leaving teaching, a voter deputy registrar, and so worked for the last 2 years trying to register voters. And I've come to the conclusion that it's not necessarily registering voters, it's getting registered voters to the polls. And so I don't know what the answer is. I put my number, like if you saw the graphics that Lubbock Compact was sharing about we don't care who you vote for or how you vote, we want you to vote. Call us if you need a ride. That was my number. 2 calls.
Oh, okay. Well, damn. Yeah, so I will say for anybody that's like me or conspiracy type shit, like, he was there. We went there the first day of early voting, very smooth.
If anything, they were done in like less than 5.
Yeah, they were very accommodating. It wasn't intimidating because this was my first time ever voting. None of that. I was just like, what the hell, pretty much. Yeah. I will say though, there was a greater turnout this time, right?
Yes.
More than
we surpassed the voter turnout for the sanctuary city for the unborn in 2021. I think it was around 34,000, and I believe we got to around 36. So, I mean, we made waves and we got the conversation started, which was all part of the hope anyway. We saw that voters turned out more for issues than necessarily candidates. And so that was part of the reason for doing it in the first place, besides it being good policy.
So a third were for Proposition A, two weren't. Is that right?
Yeah, a little more than a third.
Oh, see, I was disappointed in that one too.
Yeah.
I thought that one was going to be the reason everybody showed up.
Yeah,
and
It's a lot of people made comments about the signage on the opposition, Protect Lubbock. And it's easy to do when you spend close to $200,000. And we spent less than 10.
Oh, man. So can you explain to me what happened with the churches doing? That's not supposed to happen? That's illegal?
So they can do issues. Where a lot of the issue came in was with Trinity specifically. Actually, Trinity and Southcrest, I believe both of their pastors, Toady and I don't recall the other pastor's name, but they both mentioned Adam specifically running for mayor specifically. And so that's where the we had hoped there would be more reports. I know they have been reported in past elections, and the IRS is underfunded as it is, and that's for a reason. And so they don't hold them accountable the way they're supposed to.
I'll be damned. What do you guys think about all of that happened? Shocking? Anything?
I mean, I guess to hear that the number wasn't as big as I thought it would be on voters. I feel like there was like a bigger turnout, but I mean, 2,000 is just like a blip. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I hate to be that guy and say I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? But I feel like we see a lot of performative activism, a lot of performative, like, this is what I believe, this is wrong, I'm going to share it, whatever, because it's performative and you don't want to get left behind and you don't look like a dick if you don't agree with things. You know what I mean? And so it's you know what I mean? I feel like in our age group, we see a lot of that, you know what I mean? So it really, although disappointing, it wasn't surprising, but it's also like, damn, if a lot more people like practice what they preached. You know what I mean? That's 100%. Really it. But
well, and you mentioning that it was your first time to vote.
But y'all did a lot of footwork. Y'all did great.
Yeah. If it wasn't for y'all, I wouldn't have, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was going to say in teaching, one of my teaching partners at one point, we were brand new to the school and had just started teaching together and we're just kind of getting to know each other. But I took her to vote in I want to say it was the 2018 election when Beto was first running against Cruz. And that was her first election to vote in. Mm-hmm. And she was a teacher. Her parents were teachers. And I had conversations with several teachers in the last couple of months, starting around the primary season, and it's so crazy to me, I guess, just because I grew up watching The West Wing and going, like, my parents voted, and so it was just something I started doing the minute I could. And so to meet a 26-year-old, fully functional adult who just hadn't done it was just foreign to me. And so, but one teacher didn't realize that you didn't have to vote for everything on the ballot. Mm-hmm. Like, you can leave it blank if you don't know, or you don't, like, I didn't vote for any of the tax appraisers. I just left them blank. And another didn't realize you didn't have to have your voter registration card with you, that you just had to have your photo ID. And so these are people who are, intelligent and educated, and it's just, and that goes back to high school and trying to get high school students that information and registered. I joined the League of Women Voters in February because I was trying to help get high school students registered, and they're the only group that's allowed to go into LISD. And so I went to several classes at Coronado and got a stack of mail-in ballots from a teacher and emailed the elections office to be sure that I could take them, because they're supposed to be taken from the VDR who had them signed. And she was like, that's fine, just bring them. And then she emailed me before 5 o'clock and said, where did you get these again? Because some of them are dated from September of 23. This was in February of 24. And I had told kids, hey, you can vote in the primaries right now. Mm-hmm. And so it was devastating, because how mortifying would that be for an 18-year-old kid to go to United and try to vote, and they're like, you're not registered.
That would probably discourage them for the rest of their life.
Ever.
Yeah.
And so there's research that says that if you can get somebody to vote twice, that they're more likely to vote for the rest of their life.
So you said, like, growing up, was that something your parents told you?
Yeah.
Like, you vote, or did you just watch them?
It was just, I watched them.
Oh, okay.
And, that was just understood. It was kind of like my sister and I went to college. That it was just understood.
Something you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Do you think that's a generational thing? Not necessarily like a class or a race thing? I feel like it is. Like I feel
to
like
an extent, but I think it is also. I think class does play a role in it. I think.
Well, yeah, we
wealth,
saw that.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Wealth, religion, I think plays a role. Unfortunately.
I would say, like, in my household, like, I grew up on seeing both spectrums of that. Like, I grew up with my dad, who is just kind of like, fuck it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not my business. Like, nothing changes in my world. You know what I mean?
Maybe
Yeah.
it's a gender thing.
And that could be, yeah, because my dad is just, he's an old head, just Mexican man. He's just very, like his world has never changed. You know what I mean? And my mom has always just kind of watched the news a little bit more closely, and she'll listen to the, like with the presidential things, she'll watch those. And so it was a thing I just grew up with, like going with her to United or going with her to the post office to go vote. And it was never like politics were never shoved down my throat, but it was like, I'm going to go vote. You know what I mean? Or she would tell me, Dad, we're going to go vote. I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? So it was just one of those things.
And I do understand the intimidation factor, because when I first started voting, I believe it was before they had the super precincts like we have now, where you can vote anywhere.
Yeah.
You didn't have to vote in your specific precinct. But when I first started, you did. And so it was kind of nerve-wracking to make sure you looked on the list to figure out which one you were supposed to go to.
And I will say, like, as far as, like, my age demographic, like, when I was able to vote was for Obama's second term, if that makes sense. That it was almost like oh, God, like, Obama has to be in office. There was, like, a lot of people, like, in, like, my, like, I guess, like, age group that were, like, just, you know what I mean? So it was just, like, I hate to say, like, performative, but once again, performative, like, like, you just got to go in there and vote. And so maybe that's, like, also why I'm just kind of like, yeah, you just should vote. You know, because I've just grown up doing it.
That was the first time I voted. It was the 2012 election. Mm-hmm. So that was already a long ass time ago.
Yeah.
But I voted for every election since then.
For Kanye West?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Don't tell me you wrote in Harambe in 2016.
No.
These nuts.
But
It was on the ballot.
But I've also done like the governor primaries. Like I've done different. This is probably the first local one.
Yeah.
Because the local one, it's never really preached to
On your
go. Because I
radar.
feel
It
like,
should be.
well, because here,
I feel like the
And
local
that's-
one that really should have lit a fire under all y'all's asses was the one in like 2021 or whatever about the women's.
The sanctuary city.
Yeah, that's the one that ran me hot. I was like,
Wow.
I was so like,
well, even with that, like I think when it passed, it just kind of just seemed like it went under everyone's radar. Like no one, it was not advertised, because it's like a guarantee that, most cities like Lubbock and Amarillo, Abilene, it's mainly the older people that tend to vote. It's almost like it's a secret. We're like, oh, let's vote and let's not tell anyone else what's going on.
oh no, I don't think it was that at all. Because it was not an unknown thing. It was actually had a lot of people, as in like the female race, enraged. You know what I mean? So
Well, yeah.
it was not a silent movement. And
But
it
that's the
wasn't a
thing.
silent-
Unless I'm
we
just a
had-
guy and I just didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
think that's
And
part of it.
I remember like almost going off on you in this garage because you were like, "Oh well, what can we do?" And I'm like, "We can fucking vote." Like I was pissed. Like, how the hell are you tell me my fucking uterus has no rights? Like it was angering. It made me so angry to see so many people once again performative preaching, performative sharing. You're going to share all these really nice tan pastel looking infographics, but you're not going to get your ass up and vote. And that's what, you know what I mean? But it's whatever. It's neither here nor there.
Well, and that's the thing is like we had people like, I didn't hear about it, and I'm just like, were you under a rock?
Yeah.
Not that one.
Yeah.
Get on him.
No, but
No,
I mean,
but it's like we shared it on every platform that we could.
And I feel like that's also kind of something that's almost inexcusable, you know, for our generation. It's like
we have more information at our
That's what I was gonna
fingertips.
say.
we are more desensitized to the cruelties of this world, to
True.
what the nation is going through, that the world is going through what our cities, you know, our options and everything. And so seeing even the infographics, seeing all this information that you could literally digest and teach yourself. And so even with the whole voters not knowing that they can't vote for everything, it's as simple as, if you wanted to, you could just make a call. If you wanted to, you could just look at a website, learn this information. You know what I mean? And so I feel like a lot of that is just kind of like just looking the other way. You're just like, oh, I tried. Oh, well. You know what I mean?
Ask them about the rat beef. They'll tell you. You know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah.
weird. You know what I mean? They keep up with the shit that's not important.
Yes,
That's what I meant
yeah.
by that. But I was going to ask you. So this information, like, it was all new to us when Adam came on. He taught us all that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it should be taught in schools?
100%. As far as like just basic civics, it's in the TEC, the Texas Ethics Code, that and so it's something that I brought up with the district, is that the high school principals are required to be voter deputy registrars, and if they are not, they can designate somebody.
Was
And
that
so-
happening?
I was told that the high school principals are.
Okay.
I haven't. I would like to have that conversation with the Lubbock elections office is amazing. Like, they are a model for the state as far as how organized they are, the way they run elections and things. And so I don't understand how that connection isn't being made to where, like, they would bring out machines and show students, walk them through it step by step. And so I don't understand why that isn't. I prefaced my original email to the district with, I understand, of all people, I understand how busy teachers are. It is unfair to put one more thing on their plate. And so that's why, you know, I feel like I understand the nonpartisan aspect of wanting, like, the League of Women Voters to be the only ones allowed to help with that. But at the same time, if you're not using the resources that are available through the elections office, or, you know, actively reaching out for that information for students, I don't know how it's going to happen.
Yeah, this is a weird one. This is one of the first ones I paid attention. Well, this was the first one I really paid attention to, and you're just saying all of this, and it's like, come on now.
And they're required, like, there's a whole list of things required for high school students, as far as, besides the high school principals being VDRs, that they are supposed to offer the application form twice a year, you know, because there are some seniors who are already 18 in September, and then some who don't turn 18 until probably the end of May. But they're supposed to offer those. And they say that they're made available in the counseling office or through their social studies teacher. Well, not all students have those classes necessarily. And so, again, it's one of those things where it's like unfunded mandates. You know, they're not funded by the state. And just one more thing on a teacher's plate that is going to fall by the wayside if it's not a priority.
I didn't even know that. I'm a middle school teacher, but I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I didn't either.
And I don't even know if my district practices that or anything, because I work at Friendship. So, I mean, Lubbock, that's a little that's different, but I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can we talk? You left teaching. Can we talk about your experience and why you left?
Yeah. I left. So I started teaching in August of 2008. I graduated in May of that year, and so it was like right as the housing crisis was starting, and I lived at home through college, and so it didn't really affect me, but teaching, beginning teaching was baptism by fire. I was born and raised in Lubbock. I went to Wester, Smiley Wilson, and Coronado, South Plains, and then I graduated from LCU. And Cavazos was the first interview I had. And so I took that job. I started with, I believe there were 12 of us as first year teachers. And I remember crying in my mom's lap, at night. What have I done? Just being so overwhelmed by I felt like the magnitude of the situation I was in, being like in charge of, a room full of 20 to 30 middle school students. And it was a culture shock. I did not realize at the time that Lubbock was still as segregated as it is.
Especially Cavazos. Yeah.
A lot of Mexicans.
I had students who, had never been to a restaurant where you order from a waitress and not at the counter, who had never been outside of Lubbock. And it was, I don't feel like I wore blinders, but I guess I did. But I have learned so much in the past 2 decades, especially as a teacher, that I just have to preface everything with that. And so I taught for 8 years at Cavazos, and then I transferred to Hutch in 2016. If I hadn't gotten the job at Hutch, I probably would have left teaching then. The focus on testing, the standardized tests, STAR test, and the lack of ability at that point I was reading an English teacher. And so we were not encouraged to have like free reading time. And that has always been a passion of mine. And so when I came to Hutch, I felt like a new teacher because I was supported as a professional and empowered to try new things. And it was amazing. And so when that principal retired in 2022.
Miss Dye? Shout out there.
Yes. Heidi Dye was an amazing principal. And I know, nobody's perfect, but she did what she could to support teachers and to protect teachers and students' time for what mattered. We were not like asked to teach to the test. And I feel like with IB that played a part in it, because when I was in school, a lot of my friends went to OL Slayton because it was the magnet school, like the fine arts magnet. And Hutch was a rougher school at that time, from what I was told, what I understood. And it felt like that kind of flip-flopped. And so now I know several people who have taught or teach at OL, and it's hard when Hutch has lost that magnet status as well. And so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so the only official magnet schools are Talkington and McCool.
Not even Cavazos?
No, Cavazos lost it before I even left.
Wow.
And so
I was almost a magnet student to Cavazos
think
before I
Juan
chose
was.
Hutch.
Yeah.
So you think that magnet program and that IB is the reason there was such a shift from Cavazos to Hutch? Mm-hmm. So what can I ask
because
you?
I had a couple of students that came over, like that basically transferred with me and that I had in class from Cavazos. So I told people, like, the difference was everybody was held to a higher standard, teachers and students. And when people believe you can do something, you're more likely to do it. And so rather than focusing on the low test scores, we were focusing on bringing in books that we would read as a class and pull in articles about a historical aspect or a scientific aspect, and just kind of making it a universal thing where I say it's beautiful because, every kid that I've run into since, will mention one of the books we've read or, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just wanted to know, like, at Cavazos, like, I'm not trying to shit on them or anything. What was there people that gave a fuck there, or was it like what was it?
And so I still know a couple of people who teach there, and I have the ultimate respect for them because they give their heart and soul to the kids because they believe in them and they want them to do their best. And yet it's a lot of pressure from the district specifically, but the district is putting that on them because of the state requirements.
So can we go to that?
Yeah.
Let's go to that. So the state, it starts at the state.
Yeah.
And
That's where a lot of the power is.
Who's in charge of that?
So it depends on what you mean by in charge.
Like writing the curriculum? Or
So curriculum is
Yeah.
the State Board of Education.
And are those people voted in?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it is, unlike local school board races, it is a partisan election. And so I'm running as a Democrat for the District 15 seat. There are 15 members on the State Board of Education. The main responsibilities are curriculum and instructional materials, and then overseeing the public school. I should know this by heart, but the public school fund, permanent school fund. That's what I know the least about, and that's the finance part. But it plays, it's kind of frustrating because a lot of the things that the school that dictate what the district focuses on and why they're focusing on those failing scores is because of the state legislature. And so while the SBOE helps to write the or not write the curriculum, but approve curriculum and instructional materials, the state legislature is the body that controls the finance for the most part. And so there were 4 special sessions last fall, and the governor refused to sign any school finance bill that didn't include vouchers. And so teachers in Texas haven't received a raise from the state, I believe, since 2019.
And this is a huge problem.
Yes.
Is this a big reason why people leave?
In general, yes. It didn't, so because I don't have a family, I'm not married, I don't have kids, it never played that big of a role for me personally. Mine was mental and physical health. Because I don't know how to do something halfway, and it was all consuming. And so I had to step away. But a lot of people, it plays a huge role because, people who have families have 2 and 3 jobs.
Yeah, I've heard, because I know multiple teachers, and I've heard the hours they put in.
Yeah.
On top of even, I know a lot of coaches.
Yeah.
Them too.
I don't understand how they do
Yeah.
it. I've often said that I wish we clocked in so that people could see how many hours are put in, and coaches specifically, because they're paid a stipend for being a coach on top of being a teacher. And I cannot imagine the duties of a teacher as far as lesson planning and grading, all of those things, on top of being there for before school practice, after school practice, games.
Yeah, I've been asked if I wanted to be a coach, but I say no. That's too much. I mean, because they always make it sound like, oh, you get paid more, but it doesn't necessarily mean
Doesn't add up.
Like,
you
so much-
just
like, it would
you just have
consume
more
your life.
hours. Yeah, you just like if I was a coach, I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to go do the things
Have a life.
that I wouldn't be able to do the things that I usually do for fun. Just because it's like you got to stay, but because they show up before school and then they stay after school, like past 5:30, and on top of that they have 7th grade games and then the 8th grade games, and then then comes basketball, and then it's all those games, and then track season comes and all the before and after school practices. It's just
So you're working 6,
Yeah.
7 a.m. to
Well, in
9,
my experience,
10.
the middle school or junior high coaches are also required to do stuff with the high school.
yeah, that's another thing too.
Yeah.
Because not only they don't start just at school, they go to high school and start 2-a-days. I mean for teachers, we show up at at the beginning of August, and that's like when 2-a-days starts. But you got to do that, and then on top of that, stay to do 2-a-days. And some schools they'll do early mornings, like 5 a.m. to 8, and then they come back at night. Or some schools even do midnight practices.
Oh my!
Oh, because it's hot. 'Cause it's so hot.
Yeah, because it's so hot.
All right, so you're running for the State Board of Education. What made you decide to do that?
So I was actually I was trying to decide between the at-large position, because Zach Brady decided not to run again for Lubbock ISD, and this position. And so when Nancy Sharp put her name for that position, and she was unopposed. She is a family friend. My mom worked with her in the past, and she was actually the communications director for LISD for, I want to say 14 years, because we were both there about the same amount of time. I decided to go ahead and put my name in for State Board of Education, honestly, simply because I could not stand to see my opponent run unopposed. And that's something that, over the last couple of years with the other work that I've done, is so disheartening when you go to vote, and in our area specifically, you don't have a lot of options. Like, so many of the offices are unopposed, like the tax assessor positions that were on this last ballot. And so I want to further the conversation and be a voice for teachers and for students and for families, because it's a team sport.
So what exactly, if you're elected, would you do? What's your like?
So I would be one of the 15 members of the State Board of Education, and they meet 4 to 5 times a year for not quite a week, where they have, a list of things that they have to get through, because it's not a paid position. You don't have a staff. And so you basically, there's a schedule for how they review standards and instructional materials. So like in 2022, the social studies curriculum was up for review. Another candidate, Dr. Raquel Saenz Ortiz, is running in District 10, I believe. But she was part of the cohort, the work group that worked on the updates for the social studies curriculum. And the board decided to set aside hundreds of hours of work and said, we're going to wait until 2025. And so they had gone through this process to update the curriculum that hadn't been updated since, I believe, 2012, and set it aside. And that was the reason she decided to run. And so you have power in that you're approving what is taught, what is required. So like I got the Texas AFL CIO endorsement. I didn't even know, because as a teacher, I was part of our teachers association, and Texas is a right to work state. So I didn't even realize that we have a Central Labor Council and like sheet metal workers union. And what was the other? Electric workers. But they have these groups who advocate, and when they do contracts for construction and things, that they have written into those contracts that they have a water break. And so members, so I sat down with these guys and was completely floored, because they talked about wanting to get more information in the standards about the labor movement and workers' rights, and help like in the high schools with apprenticeships and getting, to those students that maybe don't want to go to college, to help them understand that in our area, union is a bad word.
Yeah, it sounds like it to me.
But it's about skilled work and being knowledgeable about your craft or your trade and knowing how to protect yourself. And so it's been a fascinating journey so far. But those are the types of things that can be implemented in the curriculum.
So there's 15 of y'all overseeing this huge state.
Yeah. And so mine is the biggest district as far as land size because it's based on population. And so it's 87 counties from Amarillo to Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, I believe Brady is even part of it, up to Abilene and Wichita Falls and everything in between.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So do you things being taught in school, is it outdated? Like if I heard about it, would I be like, what the hell are they teaching kids? Let's say like social studies.
So the standards they're currently working with, yeah, they're outdated. And so because I have not taught in that arena, I don't know as much as far as what the curriculum is like. And so if they've done textbook updates, I believe those happen a little more often, but at the same time, we're not like doing textbooks as much. I don't know enough about that to answer with any certainty. But as far as I know, the last time those TEKS were updated, the TEKS are like the student will read with comprehension for X, Y, and Z. And so it's like the basic level laying out what a teacher has to teach and what the student will be tested on. And so the STAR test will take those TEKS and determine which ones are readiness standards that students should know no matter what. And then there are supplemental ones. And so
this sort of curriculum and teaching, it doesn't really foster creativity at all. And that's what you're trying to help.
Well,
you're right. Like you got to learn this and this just for the state. Wait, so you can pass so they get money? Is that what it is? Like, state testing?
To an extent, yeah. But it's such a complicated, what do you teach?
I teach technology applications, so I'm an elective. I don't have to deal with the testing and all that.
But it's just so frustrating because I don't know exactly what a kid needs to know in order to be successful.
Well, Morgan,
does that make sense?
I'm going to be honest with you because it sounds to me like they're institutionalizing kids.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, and we are still working with a model that was, from the industrial age.
This is why I said this. Yeah.
Cookie cutter, everybody gets the same thing. And that's what people don't understand is that that's not how it works. And that's why Hutch was successful, was because we were empowered to do what was needed for the kids in our classroom. And that's how it has to be. And so hearing the things that are happening in like Houston ISD that, have been taken over by the state, it's terrifying because back in 2011 is when I really got involved in the Lubbock Educators Association, which is one of the bigger organizations in town, because that was when the first $1 billion budget cuts were done in Texas, when I believe Abbott was Attorney General, like Ken Paxton's position.
Oh, yeah.
I believe Rick Perry was governor, but that was the first big $1 billion budget cuts. And they tried to implement something called C-Scope, which was my sister, who was a nurse, saw me reading something on the computer, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "This is our curriculum." And she was like, "Oh, that's what we call colonoscopies." It was a C-Scope. So it was, in hindsight, it was pretty funny because it was a horrible experience. I was like, as a third-year teacher, I think at that point, I was asked to train other sixth grade teachers about this curriculum, and it was scripted. And so they said, if our principal said, if we come into your classroom on this day, we should be able to predict what you're teaching based on this scope and sequence. Which, when I first heard about it, I was like, great, we need something, because we didn't really have anything. And so we were just kind of flying blind. And, I mentioned starting with 12 brand new teachers. It was the blind leading the blind to some extent. And so hearing that we were going to have, some sort of roadmap was helpful. But then, because it was scripted and they wanted us to follow it with fidelity, it was, one of the worst experiences of my life. And so hearing that is what is being done in Houston, where these teachers, every sense of creativity or independence to help their kids is taken away, and you're required to say this, this, and this. You can't foster relationships. And building relationships with kids is the first thing you have to do in order to teach anything, I feel like.
You know what I mean? To be like, oh, I'm so
What are
quirky.
we going to do, Morgan? How are we going to solve this problem?
Well, okay, so a couple of things. One, like, there are also parents who refuse to have their kids tested.
Yes.
And so you don't have paperwork on them.
Yeah.
Two, I cringe when I meet kids who are now adults that I taught in my first few years of teaching, because I know I said some horrible things, like, I can't even think of an example, but just out of ignorance, like, truly not understanding, like, things about, maybe what happened in their house the night before that, made them not be able to sleep, and therefore they fell asleep on their desk.
Yeah.
I just, there are so many other things at play that influence what happens in a classroom that I don't know what the answer is. I do think, things like communities. And so Communities in Schools is a nonprofit organization that, I believe they're on most LISD campuses. But they help kind of with the wraparound services, as far as, like, if a family needs help with paying the electric bill or getting a kid to the dentist or the doctor, that they can help with those things. But that's the sort of thing that I feel like should be part of the school's function. Like, it shouldn't be on a nonprofit organization to raise money to do that for our students. Like, I feel like the state has to step up.
Do you think that's like almost a conservative mindset?
What do you mean?
Like, you're saying, like, let the nonprofits do it, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, for sure.
Let's not let the state fund it. Let the nonprofit.
The churches or the nonprofits.
That's what I mean. Like,
Yep. Because I know the majority of the churches in Lubbock have a campus or two that they do, like, the food bags for. Like, I know the junior league. I was in the junior league for a few years because of a teacher that I worked with at Cavazos, who I believe was junior league president last year. Like, people who are in the trenches doing the work are trying to help in these other avenues. Like, I don't know how she found the time or the energy to do this on top of teaching. But that's the sort of thing that should be, I feel like, done through schools, because that's what has to be done in order for a kid to be able to focus on learning.
I mean, it's like, what do they, preach to students? You got to get your 8 hours. You got to eat your breakfast. That's why they start implementing breakfast in the mornings and snacks, with testing and stuff. And it's like, it's almost like they blatantly know what a human needs to function, like cognitively, and to, be the best. And that really sucks that, to know that there are resources there, you know what I mean? And a lot of these kids just don't, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's just like with a lot of foundations, not even within the school district. Like, there are so many resources, that I've learned, like, these last couple months with doing these interviews. There are resources in Lubbock. There is help. There is a number. There is an organization. There is a website. There is a phone number to call. And nobody knows, so this money just sits, you know what I mean? And then it's useless, and what happens? They get shut down. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm seeing it. I'm starting to understand it.
Well, and it's like, one of these grants that I talked about helping with Lubbock Compact for writing, I did that because I did it as a teacher. I wrote grant requests to get books funded for my classroom. And that was another thing that played a role in why I left. You know, I'm hearing more about the book list. There was a list of about 850 books in 2021, 2022 that got passed around by a state legislator saying that they needed to be removed from school libraries. And I had several on my shelves. And
Is there any, what was, I don't mean to name drop
I
here.
I didn't have Flamer or...
Did he ever send you a list?
No. I asked him.
I wondered.
I wasn't going to like ask him again. He said he was. So I was like, if he does, I'll put it in there. But
Yeah.
never got it. But, so there was none of those books in
No, they're in there. So I had some of those books in my
okay.
classroom library. But the kids who needed them were the ones who typically picked them up. Does that make sense?
Well, it's just a slippery slope for me. I don't believe in banning anything. I'm pretty freaking like free for all of it.
It's censorship.
Yeah, that's exactly, and that scares me. That word scares the shit out of me.
And it should.
And
Because it's starting to feel like
it's one way today, and then it's this way
like
tomorrow.
Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, exactly. Golly.
Man, I was watching the movie Field of Dreams, and there's a part where they have like a town meeting where they talk about banning books. And this movie came out in 1989. And I'm like, man, nothing's changed. Like it's all been the same for a while.
Humans have been the same forever.
Yeah.
Forever and ever and ever.
It's just like, because in that movie, I guess they were like hippies at one time. But then like now, like the hippies were like the progressive ones at the time. But now the hippies are now like the hardcore,
The adults.
like adult conservatives. So it's just like, is that just a thing, a generational
It's just
thing
like a
that just keeps on?
pipeline.
That's how it's
the
always
older,
been.
the older I get,
Uh-huh.
the older I get, the more open-minded I get. I feel like it's backwards for
Yeah.
me, maybe.
Well, it's just like even like watching Fear and Loathing again, like how he talks about the hippie movement, like that corner of time. It is what it is, and they enjoyed it. At that time, they thought, oh, we were going to change everything. Everything was going to fall through and become great. Everyone was going to be happy. But then their dreams got shut down, and then they just went along with the system.
The government
So it's just
put
like
a kibosh on that, man.
Well, that's a very different, set of circumstances. But
yeah, true.
going back full circle to, Freedom Act and Adams' campaign, it's like it's really hard not to be discouraged and just be like, I'm gonna go home and do nothing.
I mean, and in that respect, I will say I feel like on the opposing side, that was just a lot of fear mongering and a lot of misinformation, and that really bummed
That's
me
the
out.
most frustrating part.
What are they saying? 4
And
ounces?
I feel like we see it like on both sides of that spectrum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fear mongering on both sides. Instead of just you could just Google it and look it up yourself.
Yeah.
So I see that, but that was what was disheartening is I would see a lot of people like against it, and I can respect like if you fully believe in all your heart this is wrong or this is right, whatever, that's fine. But if you're going to be speaking with confidence in your chest, you have got to know what you're talking about, or you have got to at least
fair.
get these numbers correct, or at least you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
I kept on saying that bag of alfalfa, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I wish that's what 4 ounces of weed looked like.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It was and it just looked like this massive thing, and it was twigs.
Well,
It
and
was
and
twigs
the
filling up a
numbers
freezer
of
bag.
how many joints that would make.
200.
A coworker was like,
But it's saying it's like 800 or 400 joints or
He
something.
said 200 joints, 4 ounces.
between 200 and 300
Oh, okay.
were the numbers that I saw.
And I think I saw
And well,
somebody in the comments.
I was
like,
pretty
it
happy
like
that
80.
we corrected that on the podcast, but
Yeah.
none of you guys seem to be supportive of that. But we tried.
Yeah.
We did.
No, and I listened to both Adam's recent one and his original, and then also the one with Tony Renteria, and I have total respect for you guys for asking the questions.
It
And
was a battleground for Jen, huh?
I don't know why. I got taken down.
I'm just kidding.
I don't understand it though.
I know.
But you know what?
But I feel like I feel like I can understand. You know, it's like I said. There's a lot of performative, politics online, and I feel like with that performative attitude, it's very much either you're intolerant or you're a sympathizer. And I really hate that that's kind of what
the dichotomy.
We've
one or the
regressed
other.
to. You know what I mean? Because it's just like I fully believe in the snake pit being a safe place, and in my podcast being a safe place. And you know what? Tony is who he is, and he's a little kooky, but I respect anybody that can that loves their city and that is passionately pursuing anything. Mm-hmm. Although he was very incorrect on a lot of things, a lot of his terminologies and everything, he wasn't spewing hate.
No, and he was willing to have the conversation.
And I have to
those.
respect that, because I don't think a lot of men not even a lot of men, in this community can look me in the eye and have a conversation like that with me without shutting me up, disregarding me, telling me you're nagging or whatever. You know what I mean? And so I have to respect that.
That's why I'd have him on again. He was a very good conversation.
And because of that, I'm going to look you in the eye. I'm going to talk to you. And even if you're wrong, I'm going to correct you along the way. We're not here to change each other's minds. We're here to have a conversation.
Yeah, I hope we had set the precedent for this, because I want to have this platform right here. I will have those conversations. There's certain things I agree with.
Unless you're like directly spewing hate in front of me, I'll shut it down either way. Right. And that's when I'll get like harsh about it. But there's no reason for me to be intolerant of somebody. Yeah. And I guess because of that, that's whatever. I got signed up for somebody spam bombed me on my emails. So I got signed up for hundreds and hundreds of newsletters, and I was like, whatever.
We didn't even put that out when that happened.
It happened immediately. It was the day after we did the interview. And I think I just put something on Instagram, like, thanks for your questions. We talked to Tony. I respect the guy, even though we literally went toe to toe, whatever. As soon as I did that, I checked my emails. And then I lost followers, and which it's okay. You know what I mean? Because.
But that's something, I don't think my race will ever kind of hit that level of notoriety, but at the same time it dissuades anyone from stepping up and trying to run for office or have those tough conversations in a public way.
And that really sucks, because it's almost like you have to almost walk a line to be accepted. Mm-hmm. And if you teeter in any way of that, it's like, you know what I mean, and that really sucks.
And to that point, I feel like anybody who knows me, I'm very open-minded, but very progressive in my beliefs. But at the same time, education shouldn't be partisan. No. And so, I'm trying to be respectful and, again, open-minded to people who aren't necessarily, aligned with me in every single belief, because I want to have that conversation. And I hate that it is partisan, and that's what a lot of people will base their vote on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. That's why I can't be a Republican. As much as I want to be, I can't be it. But let's take a break. I have to pee.
Something that I feel like IB does a really good job of is interdisciplinary units, where we would work with, as the language and literature or reading and English department would work with science on a certain topic. Mm-hmm. And we would do more of the background reading and that sort of thing, or read a novel where one of the books we read was A Long Walk to Water, which was set in Sudan during their, the 1985 revolution. I know there's been several since, but it was based on, it was basically an autobiography to an extent. Part of it was fictionalized, but we were able to talk about water resources and the fact that girls weren't allowed to go to school because they had to walk for water every day. And so it was about a kid who went through the Lost Boys of Africa situation and worked to bring water, drilling resources back to his village, or one of the villages that he had been in. And so like working with other departments and that sort of thing is like something that isn't facilitated as much as it could be, simply because there's not time or resources, and it's frustrating. Because that, like, to me, like, giving them a concrete connection to real life and that sort of thing helps when you can do it. And but it's so frustrating, I know, with time and resources that.
Yeah, and I guess that's it too. Like, your time is finite with them. You know what I mean? Like, once a day.
Because each class is like 50 minutes. And so, I mean, I keep them busy. And I don't want to make it sound like all my kids are like that, because it's not. It's just those select handful that just really just don't care. And, you know, sometimes I mean, from what I've experienced so far, like, it gets to me. It's just like, how come I'm not getting to them? But then you talk to their other teachers, it's like, okay, what's happening to everybody? So
that was another thing that we had that was taken away from us over time was what was called a teaming period, where multiple teachers from the same grade level would meet, not the same subject area. But if everybody was having an issue with a kid, we would talk to the parents or talk to the kid and see, you know, hey, if
like true communication.
Yeah, like if they're doing great in your classroom, what are you doing? What's working? This is what's happening. You know, where's the disconnect? And so there are ways to kind of help that situation, but because of scheduling and having to maximize, you know, basically needing warm bodies in the classroom to teach.
What do you think about certain school districts? I know Abernathy approved it. They're going to do 4 days. What do you think about that?
I understand that it will be a struggle as far as childcare, and I saw somebody saying something along the lines of the workplace is going to have to adapt, which agreed, but at the same time, schools don't have the funding. Like, I believe LASD has a $10 million deficit. They've bridged about half of that with cuts or surplusing teachers. But something has to give. And honestly, as a teacher, having 3 days to recuperate would make a huge difference. Or even if teachers work that 5th day, you know, having that time to grade and plan and do all the meeting stuff. Like, I know, I want to say Lockney or Lamesa, somewhere, like, they have been doing it on Mondays rather than Fridays. And so, because with Fridays, like, the
Football.
Athletics stuff was
It's a big
messed
deal.
up.
Yeah.
I think Ropes is doing it too.
Yeah, it makes sense. Though. They're smaller districts.
Those,
You know, they're more tight.
But
community.
I don't see Friendship doing that.
But at the same time, it's like the workload, like, there is not enough time in the day to do everything that is required to be done to full capacity, to the best that you can.
You know, because, like, I'm an elective teacher. I'm not saying that, like, it's easier, but I don't have testing I have to deal with. I've seen other teachers, like, panicking because they're like, my kids are not ready. Like, you know, certain kids are not ready. And it's like, for those, I mean, like, if a majority of those students don't do well, that's all on the teacher, right? Like, that's what they look at, right? I just, like, man, I couldn't imagine having that pressure with that. But like I said, I mean, social studies, science, math, those are tough subjects.
But at the same time, and that's one reason, like, with teacher incentive pay, that I've never understood or agreed with, because I couldn't do my job as a reading and English teacher if students didn't have electives and creative outlets like band or technology, art to do outside of that, you know, reading, writing, and arithmetic sort of stuff, because it's a team sport. I mean,
Yeah.
and so the frustration with that is that those teachers haven't always been offered those opportunities for bonuses, incentive pay, whatever you want to call them. And that includes special ed, like the hoops that special ed teachers are required to jump through to get the incentive pay. It's ridiculous. And so for that to be like something that the governor and legislators tout as we've done this, it's superficial at best.
Damn bureaucracy. God damn. I hate it. You know, God bless y'all, teachers and the kids. Jesus, this is crazy.
No, that plays another role in why I chose to run, is because I feel guilty for leaving. But even my mom has said, she's told me that she's glad that I left, because I've had improved mental health and just life outlook.
No,
I mean, because that seems like discouraging on both sides. Like, you know what I mean?
At Cavazos, I never had passing scores, ever. And so to go to Hutch, where it was the exception and not the rule to have, you know, failing scores, was insane. And, you know, like I said, we had a lot of the same students. Yes, we did have students from outside areas and different income levels and that sort of thing. So I know it plays a role. But it's just, I don't understand how teachers are able to do it day in and day out, year after year, with that kind of pressure and frustration.
Now, I'm going to bleep the name out. Are you at The reason I'm asking is because what is this thing y'all are doing with the cooking? Like, y'all are
At
going
the
out-
Ronald McDonald House?
Yeah, what is this?
She's volunteering.
Y'all are just helping cooking stuff. Shout
Yeah.
out to Tim. I think that's his name. Is it Tim? I don't know. But also shout out to Brandana. I know he Brandana Customs.
Oh, yeah?
Bee Hunt. I don't know if you know who he told me he's out there. But so y'all are just going out there and helping.
Yeah, it's, you know, something that I enjoyed doing as a teacher. I did NJHS. I sponsored NJHS, and so like teaching 14-year-olds how to volunteer and manage time and whatnot. You know, it helps morale, I guess, to get outside, kind of like getting outside of the classroom and having that interaction. It's helpful, like, for everybody to see each other as human beings outside of the workplace. So it's been fun.
I was part in GHS in middle school. Yeah, I remember going to the food bank.
Yeah, we gotta go out there and help and do it with y'all.
Yeah.
What are y'all cooking?
So we just did it, was it like 2 weeks ago? We did a pantry challenge where we went and checked out their pantry, made a game plan, and just got the supplemental things, like some of the meat and random things too. We did sofritas. No. Sopas. Brewer cooked.
I bet he did.
So they had masa, and so that was like the first thing that came to mind. And so it was funny. A family that had been discharged came in and heard what we were making, and they're like, "Oh, we'll stay for dinner, and then we'll go home." So that was cool. But we helped with their trunk or treat last year, and we're on the books to do it again. And so it's just cool to be able to. And so we've also been helping mentor with Amend. If y'all haven't heard of Amend Together of Lubbock, it's through the YWCA. It's a group of, I think it started in Tennessee with a football player maybe, but they work with young men from, I want to say in Friendship, they're in 3rd grade to high school. I think it's 5th grade in Lubbock ISD, but they work with boys, and the goal of the organization is to end violence against women. And so they work with the boys to, you know, have those conversations and create a safe space where, you know, they talk about feelings and right before spring break, they were talking about having accountability partners and like, setting goals and, what we're going to do. And so my goal, because we'll go around and share and we're there as mentors. And so my goal was to start a Couch to 5K. Like Jason and I had been talking about it for several weeks. And so he wasn't there. And I was like, yeah, he's going to be my accountability partner. And so he was gone the whole week of spring break. And the next week, it's about halfway through the week. And they meet at lunch on Fridays. And he said, or I was like, I don't think I told you yet, but we're going to do this. And we told the kids this. And so FYI, but we started it. We're doing good. So, but it's just helpful. It's really cool to see a lot of so the 6th grade group meets in a 6th grade teacher's room during lunch. And she talked about how several of the guys have shown such growth from the beginning of the school year. That it's just cool to see, people outside of their regular teacher people that care.
There you go. When is the day to vote for you?
November 5th.
This year. And it's just like voting in United or any of those. We'll get you back on before then.
Yeah. Early voting will be in October. It'll end like that Friday, I believe, before November 5th. There'll be about a 2-week early voting period and then be on the ballot.
Before we get you out of here, do you believe in aliens? I have to ask this.
Do you believe in ghosts? Have you seen anything spooky at Cavazos or Hutch?
There is a like the trash chute in that was in the closet next to my room, and I never saw anything, but I heard some things that I don't know. I would say I believe in ghosts more than I believe in aliens.
For some reason, my camera turned off as you said that. Oh, well. For anybody who doesn't know, which is kind of weird too, is O.L. Slayton and Hutch are built exactly the same. Did you know that?
No.
I just thought
the layout's the same?
Yeah, exactly same layout.
Minus the gym? No.
Just there's a little like thing.
Okay. No.
I don't know why I thought about
thinking
that.
back, I didn't realize that.
Ookie is Ookie Spooky's part of town, but Bradley got anything?
Nope.
I'm not gonna
Follow
lie,
me,
that
brother.
camera turning off spooked me out a little bit.
Oh, God.
Jenny got anything?
No, just
I will say by the time this one comes out, we'll have an additional podcast, the Big Pink Pee-Pee Show.
yeah.
We're adding some female energy and some diversity to this podcast because we're all Mexicans here, so we'll have something different for you guys.
I am also a female that's part of this podcast, so
This is the bro. These are the bros.
an additional girl is joining us. I'm so excited to not be alone.
June 22nd, we're doing the live show. You guys better be there. Other than that, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Yes.